Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. So if you've been watching the channel for a bit now, you've probably seen some of my reviews about Sabrina Carpenter's newer music. I've been a big fan of Sabrina Carpenter for a long time now, since 2017, maybe 2018. In those videos, I've kind of discussed my reservations about modern Sabrina Carpenter. I'm not really the biggest fan of this rebrand that she's doing. After listening to Espresso, I was really hoping that Short and Sweet would, kind of have some, deeper messages, maybe some more depth in the songs and stuff. And so I've been really looking forward to this album, actually. Before I go into this review, of course, this is all just my opinion. Whatever your thoughts are on this album, that's great. I'm no music expert or anything like that, so, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. So, now that Short and Sweet is here, what did I think of it?
I mean, it's alright, overrated as in my opinion.
Alright, let's get into this. Just a disclaimer, I don't know how harsh YouTube is gonna be with this, given some of the content in this album. So I apologize if I'm kind of, walking around some things here. Also, I'm not gonna review this song by song because if we're keeping it a $1.50, a lot of them are pretty similar. So my points kind of refer to most of the songs on this album. Now, as I've said for a while, the actual production of her music really improves with every album. I'd say that continues here. You can tell there's a lot of work being put into the actual music and the melody itself. But like I stated in my Espresso video, my biggest problem with her newer music is the lyrics. Man, a lot of these lyrics are just really flat. I'm sorry. I really don't like a lot of new modern pop music, which I'll go into more depth in a bit. But I really appreciated Sabrina's older music because there was a lot of heart put into those songs. There's a lot of depth, there's a lot of heavy emotion that you can really connect with. This album, I just kind of don't feel that. And again, it's kind of the same reason I've been straying away from modern pop music for years now. So my biggest problem with this album and pop music in general is it's way too on the nose with all the sexual innuendos and the self-gratification. I mean, in my opinion, a lot of these songs kind of make her seem shallow and pretty arrogant. A lot of it kind of comes off as your stereotypical Taylor Swift kind of vibe. Oh, I'm better than you, and if you mess this up, then I'm gonna mess you up. Her song Good Graces, for example, is pretty similar to Taylor Swift's Blank Space or Bad Blood. Now, that's not entirely fair to Taylor Swift because a lot of her recent music has really changed, and here I'm more referring to just sort of the stereotypical ways people have viewed her before. But going back to Short and Sweet, I really just don't appreciate how over the top it is. Now I know, some people are going to argue that, oh, it's just being kind of silly girly, kind of girly pop. And while I can certainly understand that, I think this album kind of just goes too crazy into it. I mean, again, in Good Graces, geez. I'll tell the world you finish your chores prematurely. Break my heart, and I swear I'm moving on with your favorite athlete. Shoot his shot every night. I mean, guys, what are we doing here? I think the problem I'm facing here is that a lot of her older music was a lot more universal. Yeah, it still involved romance for the most part, but it was really about the love she felt for that person or, conversely, the heartbreak. And so I think, for those reasons, I really connected with those songs because it just felt really authentic to, her situation and who she was as a person. Whereas now the focus is how good she is or what she's doing in bed. And I'm sorry, Chief, I'm not trying to listen to that kind of stuff with my music. Right now you're probably seeing, some of the lyrics that I don't want to, explicitly state given, YouTube. But it kind of just goes to show that a lot of these songs, while melodically they might be a little different, they're all kind of about the same thing. Taste and coincidence are kind of some examples of this revenge fantasy almost, where it's oh, this guy screwed me over, so I hope he and his girl in this new relationship, I hope that ends horribly. And I can certainly understand that pain, but you wishing such ill will towards another person or even people who were kind of unrelated, to me that's kind of just vile. I mean, I just don't vibe with it. I mean, it's It's really dark side mentality, in my opinion. Now, I know some people are probably going to ask, like, what the problem with all this is, and, like, this is kind of just pop music in general, right? And, oh, this music wasn't made for you, so stop complaining about it. Well, I mean, as someone who really cares about music, and I mean, as someone who's followed Sabrina for a long time now, I don't think songs about surface level sex or self gratification are good. I'm sorry, I just don't. And it doesn't have to do with whether a song was quote unquote made for me or not. I feel like I shouldn't have to like explain all this, but it's pretty selfish behavior in my opinion. And that lifestyle can lead down some pretty bad paths. And it's because the media that we consume really does affect us. It's usually very subtle and it happens over time, but what ends up happening is we end up aligning with the values in the stuff we consume. I'm not calling for censorship or anything like that. I think that's pretty stupid actually. But I think artists should really be more mindful of the stuff they create. Do we really want our values to be centered around surface level sex and arrogance? I don't think that's a good idea. A lot of men with that kind of mentality have really abused a lot of women in the past. And I would maybe forgive some of these songs if they were like, on another level, musically speaking. Pitbull, for example, like a lot of his music is pretty sus, like realistically speaking, but the actual like beats of the music are really fun to listen to. So, I don't necessarily mind, dancing to that like at parties or something like that. But if we're keeping it a buck 50, I don't think a lot of these songs in this album are like that interesting musically speaking. It's kind of hard to say exactly why I'm not like blown away by the musical aspects of this album. I mean, at first I was kind of thinking like it just wasn't the type of music I listened to, but going back to her earlier stuff, I mean, a lot of it wasn't like musically breathtaking in my opinion. I mean, it's not like Metallica or like Alan Walker. I guess it was just the authenticity is what I really appreciated about it. Actually, there is one thing I can touch on. I've started getting like kind of annoyed with this sort of like semi-rapping she's inserted into these songs. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about, right? Like she's singing her song, the melody's picking up, there's momentum being built, and then all of a sudden she'll just stop singing and like just like explicitly state the line as if she was in a conversation. So I think that's kind of worked for like a few of her songs, but she's kind of been doing it like with all of these newer songs, and it's kind of just starting to get on my nerves a little bit because there's not much variety now. Bedchem is probably the worst song on this album. I'm sorry guys. That song is just so this is gonna sound kind of random, but I've got a friend who's conjured up this playlist of let's just call it suggestive anime content. And those songs are like just absolutely terrible. Like they're truly awful. Now that's not like the actual music he listens to or anything. He just plays that when we're around with him because he knows that kind of stuff gets under our skin. But the reason I bring it up is because whenever I'm listening to Bedchem, there's this certain part of the song which should be showing on your screen right now. And it just reminds me of this like anime music, and it's just like it's really bad. At least with some of these anime songs, like they're supposed to be for jokes. Like you're not supposed to take them seriously at all. You're supposed to really just listen to them once and that's it. Unless your friend forces you to listen to that stuff. But with Sabrina's newer music, you still kind of get this sense you're supposed to take it with like some level of seriousness. I mean, yeah, it's silly, goofy or whatever, but I mean, this is still a professional album, right? Like, I don't get the vibe that she's putting this out there just for laughs. I maybe I'm completely wrong in that. You guys can let me know in the comments. But I'm still kind of getting the sense that I'm supposed to view this in a similar regard to like Taylor Swift, Adele, Bruno Mars and his new song with Lady Gaga. And I really can't. I'm sorry. I think this album is more sour than it is sweet. I do want to mention a few positives. As I mentioned earlier, I think the actual production of the music is really good. This might not be my particular taste, and I'm not that big on some of the semi-rapping, but whenever the actual melody kind of gets its momentum, I kind of can really enjoy it. Light to Girls, Dumb and Poetic, and Slim Pickens are pretty good, I'd say. For the first two, I'm not like super crazy about like the melody or like the music or anything, but I think it's much more authentic than the rest of the album. And I really like the vibe of Slim Pickens. I think the song is like pretty close to being great. I can't exactly pinpoint like how it could be better. Again, I'm not a music expert or anything, but I think the song needs like a little bit more of a push to be top tier. What I will say is I've really gotten around to Please Please Please. I think that's the best song of this album. You know, some of the synth wave, you know, kind of the melody of the song, the rhythm, I find it really interesting. The lyrics are pretty good too. They're not like a lot of these other songs on this album. They're really about like her personal worries going into this new situation, you know? And I think that I can really appreciate. So, what happens moving forward? Well, to be honest, I'm not really sure. Part of me wants to stop listening to her music because, well, first off, I've been pretty disappointed in a lot of it for a while now, but it also doesn't seem like there's going to be really a shift in her music moving forward. But I've also been like a huge fan of hers for so long now, I kind of almost feel like I have to stick around. Strangely enough, it's kind of how I feel about Star Wars nowadays. Though, at least with that, Kathleen Kennedy has to step down at some point. But with Sabrina, this could be the brand that she pushes forever. It just really sucks because I've followed her for so long, you know, hoping the day would come when she would be recognized like she is now. But in doing so, she's kind of just become like every other bland pop star. I mean, you guys have listened to her music. I mean, you know how talented she is. It's just, I don't know. To me, it just kind of feels like it's a waste. But this might potentially be my last Sabrina video. I mean, at least for a while. We don't know when she's releasing new stuff. But besides that, I'm kind of really considering if I should listen to her stuff moving forward. Sorry if this video was kind of ranty, kind of all over the place. I don't know, I'm kind of feeling all over the place with this as well. But of course, let me know your thoughts. I'm probably in the minority here, realistically speaking. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you.